Hey, Mike, would you be happy if I gave you $1 million?
Yes.
Ha ha ha. I have you now. The answer is no, not necessarily. Hey, it's 5 Minute Finance. I am Matt Robison with our certified financial expert, financial planning expert, Mike Morton. This is the show where we don't try to optimize your life. We don't try to drive you crazy with 15 steps that you need to undertake right now. Otherwise, your life will spiral downwards into a maelstrom of pain. No. We keep things simple. We keep things practical. We keep it easy, and we get you back on track with your day. Mike, you want to talk about happiness. That's so squishy of you.
Squishy. Wait, where's my $1 million?
Oh, no. That was BS. No. You know what? I don't want to bum you out too much. Sure. It's coming later.
It's good. The check's in the mail.
Yeah. Just hang tight. I totally remember putting it in the mail. Joking aside, this is a deep point because you want to talk about really like your clients are buying financial management expertise from you, but in a way, they're kind of trying to buy more happiness. And what have you want to talk about what you've discovered about that?
Yeah, it is true, right? I mean, money is just a tool that we use. We've got different resources available to us, our time, our energy, our attention, and our money. And how do you want to use those resources? How do you want to use those tools to live a great life? And what does a great life mean? It means you're very, deeply satisfied, or you're doing the work that you really want to be doing. And you could use the word happy. I'm very happy, enjoying, the life that I'm creating. So certainly we want to use our resources to buy happiness, where we can.
For me, it all comes down to, can I step on the neck of my enemies? But beyond that, I do like a certain amount of satisfaction in my life. Yeah, exactly. So just give us the layout here. So what are people going to get in the next 20 minutes or so that walks them through how to use their money to be happier?
To be happier. All right. So yeah, you've heard the phrase money can't buy happiness. Is that true? What the research says, it's definitely research on this topic. So we'll dive into a little bit about the research on happiness, and then a shift of your focus from income to using your wealth to provide more happiness. What does buy happiness, and how much net worth do I need to have to be happy? How much piles of money do I need to be happy? We will answer that question.
Well, apparently for Mike, it's $1 million, and he's not going to be too happy.
No. You asked me, would you be happy if I gave you $1 million? You didn't say, would you be happy if I just had $1 million? $1 million. Yes, I'd be very happy if you gave me $1 million. That would be great.
All right. Well, we'll test both of those propositions later in the show, and much later in the show. Stay tuned, because we have our usual weekly listener question, which is about what to do if you're facing a big expense like a home renovation. Always a good thing to walk yourself through. And finally, we are going to tackle in our One Thing segment an astonishing little known medical fact that was just presented to me and Mike yesterday. And it was, I'll just put it this way, it was a real eye opener. I'll leave it at that. All right. So Mike, money can't buy happiness, but can it?
Turns out money can buy happiness, Matt.
Well, take that, Beatles.
Take that.
What do you know?
Yeah. So there's definitely different levels of money that you need to be able to be satisfied in life and to be happy. So yeah, if you had no money, then the situation is pretty dire. And it definitely, there's definitely a curve of how much money you have to how your happiness levels. And of course, there's been research on, where those points are, how that graph is. Of course, academics love to research all kinds of things. Matt, where does all this research come from? I'm always quoting they do all kinds of research. It's all over the place.
People in desperate need of burnishing their academic credentials to get tenure. That's where it comes
from. That's where it comes from. I know. It's a riot. But so they've done this, and it turns out that money indeed can buy happiness.
I am reminded a little bit. I mean, that makes sense to me. I'm reminded a little bit of this fascinating. Did you read the book *Sapiens* by Noah Yuval Harari?
I perused it. Let me put it that way.
Oh, I see. You're like a modern person who was like, I don't read books. I read passages or podcast summaries, which is actually a good way to absorb information. There is a fascinating discussion about the difference between Western philosophy, capitalism, essentially, which is about raising your material wealth, essentially, like your material possessions, up to the level of your aspirations and expectations. And then he describes how Eastern philosophy, more like Buddhism, is about lowering your expectations and your aspirations to the point where they meet what you've got, just being satisfied with what you have, diminishing desire, essentially. It's interesting because obviously the flaw in all of that is what you just said. Like, if you have no material resources whatsoever, you're miserable. But if you have like an endless thirst for more and more and more, what the NBA coach Pat Riley calls the disease of more, then you're also eternally unhappy. And so there's a sweet spot apparently in the middle.
Yeah. And isn't it funny around the expectations? It always reminds me of movies and why I don't watch previews for like the next episode, because then you have these or I try not to listen to people telling me like, go see this. You got to go see this movie. You got to go see this movie. It's so great. Because then it's raising your expectations.
Oh my
God.
Yes.
It's all about meeting. It is your happiness or your enjoyment of any situation is all about how it performed versus your expectation.
Oh my gosh, that's such a deep point. We should have made this the one thing segment. All right, well, we've got another good one today, but that really is a trick. It so works. I remember the movie LA Confidential, which is excellent. It's such a great movie, but I had no expectations about it. I just thought it was going to be a run of the mill piece of film noir-esque, like whatever, like a crime drama. And it so exceeded my expectations that I was delighted with it. And I actually intentionally now try to lower my expectations for absolutely everything, especially other people's expectations of me.
That's a good place to be, Matt. So before we move on to the next part on the research, I did want to mention this. The diminishing returns of how much money you have. Or you can put this in context of, like we were just talking about, how big your expectations are. There are diminishing returns. And this always takes you back, Matt, to our economics class of, pizza versus beer. If you've got a whole case of beer and no pizza, man, that first slice of pizza that you would trade a lot of beer for one slice of pizza because you have got extra beer hanging around. You really are hungry for some pizza. But it's diminishing returns. Like, okay, give me another slice. I'll give you a few beers. But then once you have 3 or 4 slices, you're like, I don't really need any more. And so it's diminishing returns how happy you are. The more money certainly makes you happier. But as you have more and more and more, that next dollar is really not adding to the happiness.
And I don't want to step on where you're going with this, which is like the change in mindset, which we're getting to in a minute. But I do think that sets it up really, really well. This idea of once you reach a certain point, reframing for yourself internally how you think about that next tranche of money and what you want it to do for you can make all the difference. But why don't we get into the research? I mean, I know where you're going with this. I'm so delighted. You want to talk about my intellectual hero, and please go on. I don't want to get in your way.
Well, our great friend, Daniel Kahneman, did research quite a while ago now that pegged it at around $75,000 of income per year as a real inflection point. If you're below $75,000 of income, you're getting pretty unhappy. But once you reach $75,000 and above, then that curve, that graph starts diminishing. So that's kind of an inflection point of 75,000. Now that was a while ago. And even as I was reading it this morning, Matt, and I knew this, and maybe the listeners have heard that 75, 100,000. I think that sounds pretty low to me, to be honest. I'm like, if I was making 75,000 as like a household income, I don't know, man, like things are pretty expensive around here. And so there has been new research more recently that pegs it maybe closer to 200,000 in terms of income, and where that really, the curve really starts to flatten. Maybe it's 200,000, it starts to flatten out, going to 250 or 300. So it's not, I wanted to highlight the research because it's great to know kind of like, hey, where do I stand, or how should I think about this or feel about it? But it's going to be different for everybody as well.
Well, that also suggests to me that it's a self-awareness for each of us about where that level of diminishing marginal return sets in, and maybe where you need to start to think about that trigger for changing your mindset to additional income and what you're going to do with it and how it's going to lead to greater happiness for you. Up to that level, I'm sure, like all of us, it's fair to be focused on, hey, I need this money to live. I need to pay rent. I need to, pay for my healthcare, my food, etc. But once you get past that, it's sort of like a good rule of thumb for, all right, now what?
Yeah, it's a great rule of thumb. And I would just put the caveat, depending on where you are, cost of living is a real thing. If you're living in the middle of Ohio, your costs are one thing. If you're living, in San Francisco on the coast, your costs are another thing. And so just have no judgment on that. Just kind of realize it might be a little lower than you thought, that number, and that's okay. And think about that for yourself.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the shift. So let's say you've reached the point of income where, you've covered your material needs. You feel pretty comfortable in kind of like your surroundings, your immediate material effects. And you feel relatively, I don't know how to put it, like stress-free about your future needs, right? You're saving, you can see the path ahead. You feel okay about retirement. You feel okay about your kids' education. What do you need to do? What are you suggesting here to kind of get more happiness out of your income?
Yeah, the shift here, you put it exactly right, Matt. The shift here is recognizing it's not just your income, but how do you use your wealth to buy, let's use the word buy, more happiness, more enjoyment. So rather than using, hey, my income is 300,000 and we're we're halfway to retirement and our college savings are doing well and all the things you mentioned, rather than just thinking about, hey, the 300,000, are we taking extra vacation or something? The shift is think about your total wealth and how to enjoy that more, how to use that to buy happiness. And I'll give you examples. One, a simple one would be, hey, I've got money in the bank that could be, that's for retirement, right? It's growing and compounding, is for retirement. Well, I might really want a vacation home. My kids are growing up. We love going to this place. I'd love to invest in a cabin or a vacation home to go and enjoy that. And you could take the same money that's sitting and growing in investment accounts and have it sit and grow in a vacation home where you're building experiences with your family. And it's still an asset. It's still part of your overall wealth. And so that's the shift here, is to think about, hey, I've got this bucket now of wealth that's for college and retirement and for now and the future. And how do you enjoy that?
Right. So, and this is one of those, I always try to touch on the theme at the top of the show that your show is not about optimizing, because so many like life hack or financial planning shows are about do this amazing 7-step thing every morning for 45 easy minutes. And my reaction to that is, fuck you. It's the same reaction that I used to have to the slow food movement. You remember the slow food movement, which was like, instead of eating this kind of breakfast, what you do is you fire roast a poached egg in a metal spoon. This is a literal thing that the founder of this movement did on 60 Minutes. And you add some herb leaves and you nourish yourself. And again, my reaction, unless I didn't enunciate this clearly enough earlier, was, fuck you. I don't have the time for that shit. I do not have the time. I do not have the patience. I am just trying to get through my life. So anyway, my point of that rant is to get back to your point, which is I don't necessarily need to optimize my savings. I see your example of like a vacation home. That's perfect, right? Like I could probably earn a higher return with that if I have $100,000, sitting around, I could probably earn a higher return by just leaving it in a low-cost index fund. But it's also an investment in my happiness that I could probably earn something back on if I sell it in the future. I don't really care about optimizing that. What I care about, like, who cares if I've optimized every last cent of return when I'm dead? What I care about is, did I get what I wanted to get out of my life and the income that I had?
That is 100% where you ended there. It's like, it's not, you don't win by having the highest amount of money when you're dead. You win by having the most enjoyable life possible while you're alive. And how do you use your resources to make that happen? And so vacation home is one example where it's like, oh, we can use some resources we have. And it's going to take time and energy too, Matt. Those other tools, to have a vacation home and do all that. So there's an example. And what I'd love to do now, we'll run through a couple other examples. What does the research say? Like, where should you spend your wealth? And the one, of course, we'll mention at the top here is experiences, right? We've talked about this before, and everyone's heard like, oh, you should use your money to buy experiences and not stuff. And it's just true. That's why you hear it. And so using your time, energy, and money for those experiences. So you and I caught up again recently around the World Cup coming in 2026. And there's a great example where we're both interested in setting aside some money and time. Probably the time is even more valuable if we're going to try to get away for 3 or 4 days. And is it going to be a family thing, or what's it going to be? But to spend time together with great friends, have experiences that you can, again, relive those experiences over and over. And so that's a great place for using some of your resources. And it doesn't have to cost a lot. The World Cup, yes, unfortunately, it might. Not that we're going to be able to get to a game, but we'll do some kind of experience. But so many of them, we just hung out for a few days with great friends, and that costs nothing.
One of the things we were talking about is inertia. This is another like Daniel Kahneman, Richard Thaler, behavioral economics nudges thing. And one of the insights of that Chicago school of behavioral economics, the Thaler school, is reduce friction points that lead to inertia, that prevent you from taking the actions that you want, that benefit you long term. And, what we were talking about is we have to find a way to make it easy to spend more time hanging out with old friends, like that kind of valuable, memorable time. And I think about this not to step on your listener question, but, I brought up this example before in our lives where my wife, bless her, had the foresight to make us invest in a kitchen renovation 7 years ago. And I was all skeptical, and I was thinking in terms of, well, this isn't really optimizing our savings long term, and but what she was really suggesting to us was, let's invest in something that is going to be long-term happiness. She was thinking maybe more in terms of like our day-to-day experience in our kitchen, but also we've become the convening point for our larger family for a 40-person Thanksgiving that we have every year. And we've hosted Christmas and all kinds of other family get-togethers. We were able to host a family reunion with like 100 people in our backyard, and we use that kitchen. The point is, part of what I think leads to long-term happiness in the use of your money is those nudges that reduce friction, that make it easier to have experiences, just getting things out of the way because you have the resources to do it. And the kitchen is one example, but any purchase of experiences, thinking ahead of like, how can I use my money to make this easy, to overcome the inertia and to have the experiences I want to have.
Yeah, I totally love that. And I want to pause on that too and give the listeners a 5-minute task here. We've hit on a couple things, which is using your money to reduce friction, using it for experiences, and using it for relationships. We both were talking about, family and friends and seeing everybody and making that time. So what can you invest your money in right now that will improve your relationships with the people you care about? What is you can invest your money in to have easier, better experiences with the people that you love?
I'm going to read that back real quick. So this is a 5-minute task in keeping with the promise of the show. So this is a 5-minute homework assignment. Like assign yourself 5 minutes and just brainstorm. Have ChatGPT do it with you if you really need the mental aid.
There you go.
And come up with if you have the money, what could you do that would make things so much easier to get together with people you value in your life or spend meaningful time with them?
Boom.
And you touched on one other thing that I think we skated over kind of quickly. I just wanted to give you a moment to expand on it. You talked about giving, and using your resources, not just for your own time, experiences, and relationships, but supporting others, gifts. What else on that?
Well, there's a great, a list of things that really the research says brings us a lot of happiness, but we know one of those is being in service of others. It's one of these hard things, Matt, like you and I are just in the super busy time of life, and the same as all the listeners. And to say like, hey, I'm going to go volunteer somewhere, I'm going to go, be of service, I'm going to go help somebody. And it could just be a friend in need, cooking them a meal, or just going to say hello, supporting somebody. That's hard. We just don't have a lot of time, but I can tell you the research and personal experiences, and listeners, this too. If you think back, the last time you did that for somebody, you showed up for somebody else, for them, because they needed something, you leave that experience feeling fantastic.
Right.
I mean, you just know that. And the research bears it out. Being of service to other people, whether it's just using your skills for good or literally volunteering or whatever capacity, when you are serving someone else, it leads to great enjoyment and satisfaction of your life. So I'd highly consider, again, where can you do that? Where can you schedule that? Where can you have an opportunity to show up for somebody?
All right. Well, we have made ourselves about as happy as we possibly can, and we don't want that to get out of hand. So let's get to our listener question. And this week it is, I have renovations on my house that will total about $150,000. Should I finance that with a home equity loan, a home equity line of credit, or just pay cash for it? And I'm going to just jump right in on the answer. You have a love affair with HELOCs, so I assume that's the answer.
Look at you. I thought I would have to put that together for you, Matt, that home equity line of credit, but you jumped right there. You knew it was the HELOC.
Yes, I had to undergo like extensive Johnny Mnemonic style, like psychological mind meld to get into my brain what the hell a HELOC is. I have a very it's not going to last. Like, I'm going to hold on to this knowledge for about 20 more seconds. So please answer the question before I forget where I am.
Well, first, unfortunately, I had to tell the listeners what these three choices are, because you might not know that home equity loan is like a second mortgage. So you're taking out a loan and paying that back, just like your mortgage. A home equity line of credit is you can draw on it as needed. You could write a check for $30,000 and then you pay interest only on that $30,000 until you pay the $30,000 back down. So every month you have to pay the interest, but you don't have to pay the principal. Usually for the first 10 years, you have 10 years to do that. And then obviously paying cash, just like use money in the bank. So I'm going to go straight to the bottom line here. In this case, I would recommend using cash. Now, it depends entirely on your situation of your investment portfolio. All right, this question had some more background to it, and they had quite a large brokerage account that has investments and cash. And so I was like, you know what? Rather than borrowing at 6%, home equity, either of those first two options, borrowing at 6%, your cash is only giving you 4% interest. So if you're making 4% and you're borrowing at 6%, you're losing money every month. So use the cash in the bank to pay for it. And you might have to rebalance a little bit, but that's a good choice if you have a large brokerage account and if you have some cash. Otherwise, the other ones are great because 6% interest isn't really that bad. So you could use either of those other two. I'm a fan of the HELOCs, as Matt knows. Love the HELOCs. Can be good. Use them for short-term stuff, though. Don't take it out for like years and years like me. That's a different story. So in this case, I like paying cash. Save money, 4% interest versus 6% loan.
If you have a listener question for Mike, you can email him, believe it or not, at pod@mortonfa.com. We have a delightful fact for you today. We were just exposed to a new piece of medical information for our One Thing segment. A friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, explained. Actually, let me give one piece of background here. I recently underwent a shocking deterioration. I have been very privileged my whole life to have 20/20 vision. I have wonderful vision. I don't have a lot else going for me, but I've got that. But recently, I've needed reading glasses. And so I bought some, and my life is a lot better. So our friend, who is a little bit height challenged, explained to us that shorter people tend to get reading glasses sooner because their arms are shorter and they can't move things further enough away from them to be able to read them as their eyes deteriorate.
So that because they're shorter, they have shorter arms. They can't move their phones far enough away, so they get glasses earlier.
Yes, like T-Rexes would get reading glasses when they're like 6. Okay, here's the other great thing about this fact. It is not a fact. It is false. We were going to do it as a One Thing segment, and then we looked it up right before we started recording, and it's like, oh, that's a myth. Too bad. But just for the entertainment of our viewers, I'm going to come out of the closet here. I can't believe I'm going to do this. I'm going to put on my reading glasses. This is the first time, literally, that I've ever publicly allowed anyone to see my reading glasses.
Oh, look at you.
Here they are. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're good looking. I never knew that before.
You didn't know who you were talking to.
Oh, and I am ugly as shit. This is terrible. I'm taking them off. This is the allegory of the cave. I did not want this information. You've ruined my life, Mike Morton.
They're like the Clark Kent glasses. Let me see those again.
Oh, come
Plus
on.
with
Now
the
I have to
T-Rex.
look at myself. I'm going to obscure my self view. Oh boy.
Obscure the
Clark
self view.
Kent glasses.
Luckily for listeners that made it this far, you're lucky that the show does research. Are we giving you facts or myths? And in this case, we found out it was not a fact.
Should we rename it our One Myth segment? We can just make up all kinds of things. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We've reached the end of this. We've ruined my personal happiness by revealing just how ridiculous I look in these glasses. But hopefully, we've increased everyone else's chances of personal happiness through this discussion, except for Mike's. Man, that million ain't happening.
Oh, what? I was waiting around for that.
All right. Well, maybe next week. And listeners can find out. Join us next time.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for joining us on 5 Minute Finance. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to and rate the podcast. It makes a huge difference for my show. You want more? Find Morton FA on Substack. If you have a comment or question, please email pod@mortonfa.com. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. This recording is for informational purposes only and should not be considered for investment advice. Opinions expressed are as of the date of recording. Such opinions are subject to change. I cannot guarantee the accuracy or completeness of the data presented here.